Hey everybody, Alanna Kaivalya here. It is great to see you. Happy Wednesday. I hope that you guys are all having an amazing day, afternoon, whatever time it may be, wherever you are. I wanted to pop on and answer one of the big questions that I have been getting in recent weeks, which is what exactly is a spiritual coach or a spiritual leader? And how does that differ from, something like a life coach? We've heard about life coaches for a while. It's a big, huge business. It's a booming industry. In fact, life coaches command quite a lot of money and they're incredibly valuable. Well, a spiritual coach is too. And there is a pretty big and major difference between a life coach and a spiritual coach. All coaches, no matter what they're doing, in fact, even coaches of sports teams, help people to achieve a goal, right? They help people to achieve a goal. So that's definitely something that any coach will do. And hopefully a good coach will help you to achieve the goals that you're looking to get to the end of, right? That's what makes a coach really valuable. And that's what makes them really wanted in whatever industry they're in. Now, a spiritual coach is a little bit different because it's about the tools that they use. It's not just life coaching. Life coaching, somebody can stand by, cheer somebody on, help you get to the finish line, set out some goals, maybe give you a spreadsheet or a calendar. All of that is great. A spiritual coach is a little bit different. And spiritual coaching stems from the desperate need of people today to find someone to connect with, to help them find their purpose and achieve not just goals, but their fullest potential in life. This is major. So let me define it for you a little further. I started recognizing the need for spiritual leadership, spiritual coaching many years ago. I've been teaching yoga and in the spiritual industry for over 20 years. And even as far back as 20 years ago, I remember getting questions from my students that were so big that at the time, I didn't have the training to answer them. And my guess is that you've probably run into the same thing, honestly, especially if you're here with me in my community. We are working on the deeper elements of yoga, spirituality, philosophy. We're incorporating other modalities into the work we do, astrology, tarot, chakra therapeutics, all of the fun stuff that I like to classify as modern mysticism. So over 20 years ago, when I started getting these questions from clients and students, which again, I'm sure you're getting them too, bigger questions like, what do I do about my failing relationship? What do I do about my career that I'm not in love with? How do I pursue my dreams? What is my real purpose here? These are big life questions. And these are questions that all humans ask. But where do people go to ask them these days? They can't just go to a regular coach, and they can't go to their mental health professional, and they can't go to their medical doctor. There needs to be somewhere else that people go to ask these big questions. Now, if you're here live with me, I would love to have your input as to whether you get these questions too. I'm sure that you do. It's going to validate everybody who's here live on the broadcast. Have you had students or clients ask you things like, what is my purpose? What am I really meant for? How do I get through this big problem in life? People are always going to come to us with challenges, with struggles. That's the nature of the kind of work we do. If you put yourself out there as a yoga teacher, which again, if you're here with me, I'm guessing that's probably one of the paths that you're on, then people are going to have this inner knowing that somehow you have the bigger answers. Unless you have the training to get those answers for them, you might not, which is something that I struggled with for so many years. It's why I did more study in terms of different types of metaphysical practices like astrology, like tarot, like the chakra therapeutics, deep diving into the psychology of yoga. It's why I got a Ph.D. in all of this stuff. So I really understood how to help people with these bigger life questions that everyone has. Now, typically in history, if we look back, right, little history lesson for you right now. Typically in history, if we look back, the people that would get these questions, right? If someone was struggling with these bigger questions about life, the universe, their meaning, their purpose in it, what to do with themselves in relationship and career, they would typically go to their clergy member. They would go to their clergy member. And that's not really something that people do very often anymore. There's no judgment about that. It's not right or wrong. It's just statistically true that in ever-growing numbers, people are leaving, exiting traditional organized religious practices. You probably recognize this in your community, in your family, in yourself. Perhaps you yourself grew up with some sort of religion that you no longer work with directly, or maybe you still have a little bit of a tie to it, but you wouldn't necessarily think to go to your clergy member for counsel. Now, this started happening around 150 years ago. At the same time, the practice of psychology began, right? Psychology didn't always exist. Psychology as a study, as a discipline, as a practice, as a thing, only began about 150 years ago. We see its inception with people like Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. It has grown obviously since then. It's big business nowadays. We have an entire industry of mental health around psychology. Psychology is an amazing practice. It's part of my Ph.D. work. However, the point of psychology, its initial inception, was specifically in reaction to people wanting to move away from spirituality and religion. Psychology very specifically does not integrate spirituality because it was trying to remove spirit from the psyche. And so that's why, again, this won't be true for every mental health professional. I definitely have friends of my own who are in the mental health industry who definitely integrate some spiritual practices into what they do. But traditionally, and in the type of focus and honestly some of the areas of boundaries, the constrictions that they have in their practice, many mental health professionals cannot move into this spiritual world with us. So they can't necessarily address these bigger questions. And not only that, specifically in therapeutic practices like of psychology, they can't just tell people what to do. You can't just give people answers. This is why it's very typical in a therapy session that a therapist would pose the question back to you. You say to the therapist, "What should I do?" The therapist says, "What do you think you should do?" Now, again, this is all valid, okay? This is all valid. There are absolutely amazing transformations and breakthroughs and things that happen in terms of psychology and therapy. But it is in a different lane. It's just in a different lane, that's all. You wouldn't ask the medical professional to necessarily do a therapy practice, or vice versa. If you had a broken bone, you wouldn't go to the clinical psychologist. And if you had a struggle with a mental health issue, you wouldn't necessarily go to your medical doctor, right? It's just different lanes. Both are valid and amazing and good. But what spiritual coaching and what spiritual leadership does is it enters that third lane. The one that is not addressed. It's not addressed by life coaches, by mental health professionals, by medical doctors. You guys, there is a massive, massive gaping hole here in society. And what I would put to you is that we are more aware of this break, this space, this hole, because of the recent pandemic. We now really understand the power of connection, the power of interconnectivity. We now truly understand what it means and the desire to be a part of an integrated whole, not just with society, but within ourselves. One of the things that I continuously read about, even still, is what they're calling the second pandemic, which is an incredible escalation of anxiety and depression. And yes, of course, there is a space for that to be healed and worked with in the mental health arena. Absolutely. I would also say, though, that 150 years ago when psychology was born, it was a mistake to think that you could separate psyche from spirit. I don't think you can do it. Honestly, I think if you're here with me listening, you probably have a sense that that's true as well. If you've dabbled in a practice like yoga for as long as you have, or deep dived into any of these other mystical practices, you probably have a sense that there's more to you than just this physical body and the inner workings of the consciousness. There is. There's so much more than that. And human beings have known that for a long time. But again, when the Industrial Revolution occurred, there started to be this deep separation and almost hiding away, pushing away, removing or attempt to remove, I don't think you can remove it, attempt to remove of the spiritual practices. We do need them. Now again, human beings have known this for a long time, and these inner workings have always been addressed. About 1/4 of the entirety of your psyche is dedicated to the metaphysical reality. The metaphysical reality is just a word, a name that I'm using for the big questions that we all have as human beings. Why am I here? What am I doing? What's the reason for all this? What's my purpose? What is this all for? Is this the right path for me? Is this the right career? Is this the right relationship? Do these things that I'm doing really help me to manifest my fullest potential? What even is my fullest potential? Well, spiritual leaders have always helped people get to those answers and get on that path. They always have. They weren't always called spiritual leaders, though. They weren't always called spiritual coaches either. Sometimes they were called clergy members, and sometimes even before that, they were called mystics. Now, again, if we look historically, there have been mystery schools throughout history in many different cultures. There were mystery schools in Egypt, in Rome, in Greece, in Babylon. They were always there and present. And what these mystery schools did was compile the spiritual wisdom of the day and train people to help others using that wisdom. Interestingly enough, mystery schools always had a physical type of a practice to get people more connected and integrated with their bodies. You and I have asana. Mystery schools always had their own form of astrology. There was Babylonian astrology, Egyptian astrology, Greek and Roman astrology. Today we have Western astrology because we are Westerners. There was always a form of divination, again, unique to the time and place that these mystery schools were being utilized, teaching people, working with people. We have our own form of divination as well. It's the tarot deck. It was uniquely designed for the Western psyche in modern times. Mystery schools have always had a method and a modality of healing. We have the chakras, what I have always thought of as the heart and soul of yoga psychology. And my friends, yoga is a psychology. Okay, it's a spiritual psychology. It's a psychology that hasn't removed the spirit or tries to ignore it at all. It integrates it. So when I train spiritual coaches, when I ask you to step into your role as a spiritual leader, number one, I know that you are. I know that you are a spiritual leader. Number two, I'm here to help you with all of the different modalities of mysticism that are necessary, that have always been used in this capacity to help people not just achieve goals, right? Goals are great. You want to buy that dream car in a few months, a coach can help you. A spiritual coach, however, will help to get to the underlying triggers and blocks that will reveal to you why you don't already have it. And what that does is help you to create true and lasting change. And isn't that what we all want? Didn't we all get into this initially because we wanted something bigger for ourselves, because we wanted something different, because we wanted to alleviate suffering? If you've been through a yoga teacher training, whether mine, online, the Kaivalya Yoga Method Academy, or another one, you've heard a lot about how yoga is meant to help you stop suffering. That's a mindset, my friend. That is a psychology. That is a state of being It's not a cessation of external circumstances. It's the way that you approach, look at, perceive external circumstances. And a spiritual coach can help an individual shift their perception to alleviate suffering, improve well-being, and not just get whatever goal they've set for themselves, but set themselves up for a lifetime of manifesting their fullest potential. This is big stuff. This is big work. I know that you are already doing it. I know that. In my heart of hearts, I know it because you're here with me. I don't think that there's any accidents in the universe. You didn't stumble upon this particular live broadcast on Wednesday afternoon by accident. Something brought you here. Something made you be here. Maybe it's something that you needed to hear. Maybe you needed to remember or realize why you got into this work in the first place. But if your experience is anything like mine has been in working with students and clients, then you're getting these bigger questions already. You're getting the questions about relationship, purpose, meaning, career. How do I really do what I'm meant to do here? Those are the questions you're getting, probably far more than you're getting questions about alignment in triangle pose. Okay, alignment in triangle pose is great. I'll teach you that too. You know, everybody starts where they are. However, your students are recognizing in you your power, your potential to take them further. And maybe all you need is just a little bit of additional education. Maybe you need to understand how to integrate some of the many different modalities you've learned. One of the things that I really love and always find out about my community and deeply appreciate in my community is how hyper educated they are. I'm sure that this is you. And again, if you're here with me live, please let me know. I work with people. I've led the spiritual coaching certification already this year a few times. I just launched it this year. It's really an exciting program. And when I'm working with these new coaches that I'm certifying, I am blown away by how much education they walk in with. They're like, yeah, Alanna, I do tapping. I do hypnotherapy. I'm certified as a Reiki master. I took your tarot course. I've taken your astrology course. I have 19 different certifications. I know how to teach restorative yoga. I know how to teach vinyasa yoga. And I'm just like, whoa, like you have all of these things that you do. But what I'm finding is that there isn't a lot of support maybe or instruction for people like us as to how to really integrate them and use all that training, all of your incredible knowledge, all of your passion, your wisdom, your verve for this work in a way that actually gets people to their best finish line. Again, which is manifesting their highest potential. As a coach, you'll have people come to you with a problem. I'll say, I want to work with you because I don't have the right relationship. I'd like to cultivate the right relationship. And you'll be like, yeah, okay, I got you. Let's help you do that. And along the way, I'm also going to completely help you transform your life. That's the game, right? They come in with one problem and they get a whole life makeover. It's amazing. But perhaps you need the structure to really bring this together and assert yourself as a spiritual leader. To really bring all of those modalities into one spot. So another thing that I really help people do is to grow and develop, establish their business, their level of expertise as a spiritual leader. Like, yes, this is something I can do. I can help you get to the finish line. It's really exciting because you are hyper educated. You know so much. And if you're not thriving with your spiritual career, if you're not helping people in the way that you really believe that you can, that you know that you can, then it's time. It's time to step into your role as a spiritual leader more fully. And there's lots of ways to do that. And it's not just by working with me, right? I'm not the only end all be all. This isn't that kind of broadcast. It's more of a broadcast to define what it is that you and I are really here to do, okay? And look, you might be in my yoga teacher training with me. I'm incredibly grateful. I'm very glad that you're here. And you are going to realize very quickly, just as I did, that 200 or even 500 hours of a yoga teacher training is awesome and it's going to make you an extraordinary yoga teacher, but the universe is calling you to something bigger. And you know that because of the questions your students are asking you. Because they come to you, they have this sense, right? Yoga has this spiritual air about it. They have this sense, this idea that you can do something more for them. And remember, where else are they going to go? If they're one of the many, many people who've walked away from a specific religious practice, they're not going to go to their clergy member. If they are asking these bigger questions, the medical professionals can't help them. The mental health professionals very well may not be able to help them, but we can. And with the dramatic increase in anxiety and depression, things that yoga and spiritual practices like you and I do are uniquely and primely designed to alleviate, we have to do this work. We have to do this work. The universe is calling us to this work. It's imperative. Your students are already asking you for it. So that's the difference between a spiritual coach and a life coach. I know I went in a bunch of different directions, but it is a big practice. It does involve astrology, because when people are asking you, what is my purpose? Are the things that I'm doing now going to help me manifest my fullest potential? You can actually look at someone's astrological chart and say yes or no. You can actually say, oh, wow, you know what? I see a whole other avenue here. Have you thought about that? Have you explored that? And they might say, you know what? I always had an inkling. I always had an idea that might be for me. Imagine the doors, the windows that you've opened for them into how to become even more joyful in their existence. If they come to you with a problem and it's like an immediate problem and they need an answer now, your 200-hour yoga teacher training is not going to get you that answer. But a divination practice like the tarot can. You can literally lay the cards on the table. The tarot deck is like looking at the inner workings of someone's psyche, and you're laying those cards on the table and you're seeing, aha, I see this problem. Here is the blockage. Here is how we clear it. What do you think about that? And you have a conversation with the client. And again, sometimes it just takes an outsider's perspective, a true spiritual leader, to get people catalyzed, mobilized into manifesting their highest potential. Now, I know that when I started in this arena, in this industry, all those years ago, I had a desire to do this with people. And it took me years to gain the training and the knowledge that I needed to really do this, to really change people's lives, not just in the moment, but in a lasting and permanent way. So now my work is to make it a little easier for you, to give you a leg up, to show you how to do this, to give you all of my knowledge and, make sure that you're answering that call again, because I see, and I'm sure you do too, the need for it in our society. So if you don't yet have a practice of astrology, dive in. If you don't yet know how to read the tarot cards, get started. If you haven't really worked with the chakras on the level of yoga psychology, it's probably time. And if you're just finishing up your yoga teacher training, get ready, because there is so much more that the universe has in store for you. So I hope that you feel inspired. I hope that you feel intrigued by answering your deeper calling. I hope that I've illuminated for you a little bit why you feel this calling and your students are calling you to it, and why it's absolutely so necessary right now. And I hope that I've also shown you how much bigger this work is than life coaching, which has its place and it does its thing. And we have this incredible kind of middle lane between mental health and the medical professionals that we occupy that is like a vacuum. And it's time for us to fill it. So in whatever way you do that, I am cheering you on. I am your biggest supporter. I am your biggest fan. I honor you for that work. If you would like help, if you would like me to show you exactly how to do this, the next round of my spiritual coaching certification program starts Monday, October 3rd. And there are 3 spaces left. So if you want to claim one of those spots, the link is here for you. Make sure you click it, check it out. That page has lots more information on it. Of course, always, if you have any questions, I am always here for you. You can ask them right here on this platform. I am here to answer them. This is my life's work. This is what I'm here for. So I am your biggest fan. I'm your biggest supporter. Thank you for doing this work. Thank you for engaging in the work of yoga, spiritual practice, mystical practices, especially spiritual leadership. And thank you for all that you do for your community. Right? I just want to say that I see you and I honor you. And thank you for being a part of my community. I am always, always, always super, super grateful to have you. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here live with me on my Random Wednesday broadcast. It was my great honor and pleasure to be here with you. I will be again live very soon. I actually go live all the time. So I can't wait to see you on the next broadcast. And until then, please take care of yourselves and take care of each other.